One of my favorite points is to say, I'm a teapot, but that doesn't make me one. And the reason I like to say that is because of this other point. You know, many years ago, what some people consider to be a great philosopher, the 20th century, Bertrand Russell, he was an atheist, and he said the universe just is, and that's it. The universe just is, and that's it. So, without any explanation. So I could tell you, well, I'm a teapot. And that's just it. And if you're going to believe the logic behind Bertrand Russell, which people did and do, oh, what a great man. What a great intellect, they say. Bertrand Russell explained why there is no God. There's no eternal God. The universe is eternal, says Bertrand Russell. Well, how and why and what it just is, and that's it. Well, I'm a teapot, and that's it. That's just it. And you could say, well, it doesn't really apply because there are different concepts. Not really, not at all. They're just two blanket statements, one from Bertrand, one from me, without any proof at all, just a statement. So, you could say, well, Glenn, you don't look like a teapot. And I can go, well, that's because I'm tricky. I look like a human being because it's one of the things I do as a teapot. So, just to make us, there are a lot of questions that go unanswered by just assertions. For example, one thing that could be looked, scientists themselves know things about the cosmos because the laws that govern the cosmos are uniform throughout space. What's true in the local area here is true light years away. So they can look at something through a telescope and with X-ray telescopes and et cetera, they can go, oh, this must be that or that must be that. Well, why do you know? Because that's how these type of particles at an atomic level act, or So, and also through time, you got archaeologists. You go, well, these things are this old. Well, why do you know that? Well, because these atomic particles act a certain way. Well, we know they do that today, but what about then? Well, yeah, they're uniform throughout time and space. Okay, so now you have atomic particles acting in a certain way. Why is the question? Why are they uniform? And, so as scientists that are honest, truth seekers, view all of these matters, they begin to see a design. There's a certain design. Like there's laws that govern the universe. Where do these laws come from? And why these laws? Why not different set of laws? Those are the questions that need to be answered that are not answered by a simple, well, the universe just is, and that's it. Why are there certain... Even if a person can't answer, they have to admit there are scientists have to admit there are laws governing the universe, because that's how they discover things. That's how they figure stuff out, through the faithfulness of these laws. They can trust them. But wherever there's a lawgiver. And wherever there's a design, there's a designer. No one would think, in walking through the Sahara Desert and seeing a pocket watch, that it just came to be. If somebody would say, well, I wonder where that came from. Well, it just came to be. They say, don't be silly. It's clearly got a design. So wherever there's a design must be a designer. And by the same token, if an artist just throws paint at a canvas, which sometimes they do, and they call it art, they just throw paint. They have no idea what they're doing. They just throw it right at the canvas, and somebody comes by and goes, oh, that reminds me of my grandpa, or that reminds me of this or that. And depending on which person is looking at this conglomeration of paint on the canvas, they might come up with different ideas of what it represents and what it means to them, and they develop an idea of whatever design they happen to see. But no one would, use that same thought with a real Rembrandt or a Michelangelo or a Da Vinci. Or those type of paintings that they did clearly had some design behind them. In the first instance, yes, it could be arbitrary to say one person sees this and one person sees that. In the case of an artist just throwing paint at a canvas, but no one would ever say that one of the great masterpieces that there's no particular connotation to it, that the artist didn't have a plan when he painted it. It clearly had a plan. So in that way, design is not an arbitrary judgment. Because and just the idea that there is such a thing as a concept of design in the mind of man to begin with. You have to wonder why. But in any case, where there is design, there's a designer. And the universe, by these atheistic scientists, they trust the design that's in the universe, of the uniformity of activity of atomic particles and noble gases, etc., 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 etc. They trust them. That's how they make their judgments and discoveries and do their experiments. There's design. And it's not arbitrary. It's not in the eye of the beholder, like some people would have you believe. Like I said, that's ridiculous. No one goes through the desert and sees a German pocket watch or a house in the middle of the desert and goes, well, nobody built that. You just think somebody built it. It looks like, in your imagination that somebody might have built it, but it just came to be. It just comes together like that through nature. But that's what scientists would have you believe about the universe and all these laws and things that govern the universe. So, those are a couple of basic ideas that are really irrefutable, unless you want to, pick at things. Now, another major point that any honest philosopher agrees with, people think that it's ridiculous to presume the existence of God, and it's much saner to presume in the existence of an eternal universe rather than an eternal God. That's what certain people would assert, but certain other people clearly see that it's much saner to believe in the existence of a creator who created the universe, who is eternal, than it is to believe in an eternal universe without a creator. Um, it just makes more sense that there should be an eternal God rather than an eternal universe. And finally, they get into this multiverse theory, like this universe is just like a bubble inside of another universe, and da-di-da, and we don't know the half of it, and it's all this fantastic, wonderful, big, huge universe that just keeps going, and we're like bubbles in a pot of bubbling honey or something. Well, and that explains everything and nothing, because it doesn't. It's like a blunderbuss. With that kind of an idea, we can easily say that, um, you know, the universe just came to be 5 minutes ago with our memories embedded in us of having lived a long time and gone through childhood and everything, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this multiverse, rather than simplifying and explaining the existence of the universe, now you have to explain the existence of many universes, and you haven't explained the existence to begin with of the first universe. It's like saying, if there's a virus on your computer, you say, where does it come from? It came from another computer. Well, where did it come from? From there? Well, from a different computer before that. Well, where did it come from before that? From another. You can go back a million times, and eventually you're going to have to get to where it first came from. So this idea of a multiverse, explaining, it doesn't explain anything. It's just smoke and mirrors. And one of the big ideas in my mind about the multiverse, even if you wanted to embrace it, even if you wanted to, and that's how you find solutions. By the way, you embrace, you go, okay, I'll believe that. That sounds. Let me see what that says, and you just go, okay, and then all of a sudden, here comes. Now you can discover what the fly in the ointment is, because if you wanted to embrace the multiverse, which these atheistic scientists claim anything and everything that can happen will happen in the multiverse. Your present existence is illusory, and blah 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 blah, and anything and everything can happen. In one universe you'll be walking on the ceiling with pink socks, everybody, and whatever. But the one thing that doesn't exist in any of their universes is God Almighty. That just doesn't happen. Anything and everything, they say, but not God Almighty. And there's a reason for that, because they know intuitively, by admitting that God Almighty would exist in any universe, by definition, would exist in all of them, because that's what God Almighty means. And so that will never happen. Anything and everything can happen in the multiverse. Anything, God Almighty. Well, that doesn't happen. That bigotry in scientist thinking and philosophic thinking is very revealing to me. That's the end of my thought.